to Cybersecurity, your weekly cybersecurity podcast, hosted by Richmond Advisory Group Principal Analysts, namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. We are so excited to be here at RSA on the floor, giving you a live update and having some special guests. How are you, Rory?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
We've survived. This is day 4.
Have we then? I mean, we did say we were down to one shared brain cell.
Shared one brain
Just
cell,
one.
yeah, so half of it. I thought maybe we could, just swap it backwards and
Could
forwards.
I have it back for a moment, please?
Okay.
Okay, so those of you who have listened to us in the past, you know that we're very informal and we just chit-chat and talk about all the things that we've been seeing. We have seen a lot. I think we've had 30-ish meetings.
30-ish meetings.
Oh my gosh, so we've talked to telcos, we've talked to startups, we've talked to big system integrators, we've talked to the consultancies, and we're seeing a theme, and I know this is no surprise, of Agentic AI, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing that Agentic AI is all over the show floor. But we have a special guest, we'll announce them next, and they're going to talk about their announcement around autonomous threat operations machine, otherwise known as, in my lexicon, a SOC robot, and that is an Agentic AI tool.
And this is the Atom project, isn't it?
It's the Atom project, and it's from IBM.
Yep.
And I think it's relatively new.
It definitely is. It's something that we had kind of maybe suspected or heard about, but actually getting to see it was awesome. It was really good.
It is really good.
So that was a great thing. We've also seen a whole bunch of stuff relating to sort of identity in general and identity management, identity attribution, and so on.
There's identity access management, there's privileged access management, there's IGA for governance, but we're also seeing identity hygiene really on the rise, and the data visibility of that identity. And so being able to graph map all of the identities and the owners that have something to do with whatever the service, if it's non-human identity, or if it's a device or software. So who is the identity and who owns it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And that ownership is extremely important, as we know, because so much of that feeds into governance and regulatory compliance, and obviously just general protection measures for the organizations. And obviously CISOs need to take that very seriously, given the responsibilities they have for that in an organization.
That's right.
So what else have we seen then that's worth mentioning?
What else have we seen? So there have been acquisitions. Let's see, what was announced that was acquired this week? Help me with my half a brain cell. Palo Alto made an announcement of Protect AI. So we'll do a shout out to Protect AI.
Yes.
We'd love to chat with you more and find out about what you do.
When you listen to this Protect AI, please come and talk with us. Let us know if you're interested in having a chat.
Right, and so what else? There weren't a ton of acquisitions, honestly, but there were a lot of announcements. I think the Atom announcement was really interesting to me. There are certain announcements about how folks are going to be doing identity around NHI, the non-human identities. And I think some companies have done that for a while. They're used to going after the service accounts, they're used to going after the machines, the bots, and we talked a lot about that, but we didn't really see any announcements, did we?
No,
Not that
I think
remember.
there was this, I know you asked a lot of questions of folk about, well, what is it with the non-human aspect? How seriously are you taking services as a identity and amongst that? And there was a bit of humming and hawing from some of the companies. Some are doing it, some aren't. Some say they've been doing it for years, but we don't necessarily see evidence of that.
So, we also had conversations with service providers and with product vendors, right? So we talked about identity, we talked about data security, we talked about MDR. That's still very much alive and well. We've seen a lot of consolidation in the market around MDR. And then we also see the standalones. So more to come on that. I think that's probably enough before we get to our guests. And our guests today are pretty exciting. We're going to talk about Atom.
We are.
And we're going to also talk to IBM while we have them. We're going to talk about the IBM X-Force 2025 Threat Intelligence Index. So another kind of threat report. We saw the DBIR come out last week, and we'll be talking to Alex Pinto about the DBIR in coming episodes. So stay tuned for that. But today we'll be talking with two wonderful IBM folks about the threat report that they just released as well.
This week we have two very special guests joining us on the sofa. We have Mark Hughes, who's a global managing partner for cybersecurity services at IBM. And we also have Jake Paulson, deputy head of IBM X-Force, which is a head of strategy and delivery. Mark and Jake, welcome. And thanks for joining us on the sofa.
So what I've already noticed is you have a longer title, Jake. So you were telling us a little bit about your background and how you both went to military school, and there's always strategy and competition. So how does that factor in?
Yeah, it's always offense and defense, right? And so within X-Force, right, so we do have an offensive penetration testing service, right? So how do you kind of poke and find weaknesses?
I love it.
But then at the same time, it's how do you defend against those weaknesses? And that's the incident response side, right?
He's so smooth. I was trying to tee him up for a little competition, but he backed down and went to the offering. So listen, we're here to talk about the Threat Intelligence Index. So I want to make sure I get the title right. It's IBM X-Force 2025 Threat Intelligence Index.
Perfect. Congratulations.
That's a miracle. We've already joked about how we only have one brain cell left between us, and we're sharing it.
Yeah, well, you now have it.
I have it.
Gone. Yeah. So
Okay,
if I'm
that's a good
quiet,
thing.
you'll know why.
It's been spent.
It's been spent. So, okay, so we have scanned it. We have not read it deeply because we've been at RSA and it's been a crazy week. So a few stats called out to me. Okay, first of all, before the stats though, I want to know, where do you get the data? Now, I know a little bit, but tell us, where does all of the insight come from? I know it's X-Force, but what are the sources that you use?
Yeah, so a lot of our sources come directly from our incident response cases, right? The hotline cases that we work with clients, right? But then we also have our threat intelligence function that tries to learn the wisdom from other people's failures, right? From other cases, right? And so we track a lot of the bad guys and their tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? So we can learn in advance, right? We can play defense in advance, right? We can be proactive about it.
Got it. And then you're also taking in OSINT, the open source stuff.
For sure.
Yeah. And partner data, third-party data, anything
IBM
else?
headquarters, globally, everything, right? So we're
Everything.
trying to absorb as much data as humanly possible.
Okay, so the kitchen sink, and then everything goes in there and gets jumbled up, and then you are doing the analysis and putting it through the funnel. Are you using AI to help with that funnel, to come out with the pithy report stats?
Everybody is.
Everybody's
absolutely,
using AI.
Trying to be quick, right? And our analysts really, but it's when you apply the critical thinking. What are you asking the AI to look for, right? And then what does it mean? What is actually the output that comes out of this, and how do you make sense of it, right?
So tell me some of the scariest things that you've seen in this report. I've got a couple that I really thought were interesting, but let's go with yours first.
I think the hardest thing to me, right, and the scariest part is that hackers, why would you try and hack it if you can just log in? Right?
Right.
And we've always known like passwords and identities being out on the dark web forever, right? That's something that we've always tracked. But I mean, now you have these info stealer malwares that are being deployed with phishing campaigns, and this significant, enormous rise, right? Like 150% increase just this year already.
Whoa.
Right? So you're seeing this as people deploying the means to be able to just log in, and it's very hard to track normal behavior, right? This is not even malicious behavior when it's just someone logging in with their own identity and password. How do you know the difference?
So 150%, did you say?
Yeah, the increase
on
just
the rise.
this year.
Holy mackerel, I mean, that's crazy. Wow, okay, and the other thing that I noticed was that manufacturing is the top industry being attacked for the 4th straight year, right? According to your data. And we've been seeing manufacturing on the rise in our surveys. We're seeing it over and over again that they're getting a little bit more mature, they're understanding the issue a little bit more, but there's still a holdback, and we were talking about this before. Why is manufacturing in jeopardy right now? Why is it a challenge for them with their structure? And why do you think they're on the rise?
So, I mean, it's on the rise because they can't have downtime, right? They always have to be continuously producing widgets, right?
Yep.
And so manufacturing as an industry really is second. I mean, that warehouse doesn't go down, or that warehouse goes down, right? You're no longer producing something that sells money, right? Or that makes money, right? That you can sell.
A lot of their networked stuff is air-gapped.
For sure.
And it's hard for them to take a system down to then be able to update the software, update the system. We know that, all the way back to forever ago, SCADA systems were an issue, and we're looking at these companies that are trying to sort that out. The Clarities, the Nozomi, the Dragos, right? And you guys are working with manufacturing as well.
For sure.
And so that's a scary stat. No worries. So I want to turn our attention to an announcement this week that is near and dear to my heart. It's ATOM. I'm going to see if I can get it right. It's Automated Threat Operations Machine.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
Holy cow, I got it right. Okay, with the one brain cell. Thank goodness.
Yeah, no, very good.
And we had a really interesting demo of that earlier this week.
Yeah.
And it was real. You know, there was no smoke and mirrors involved.
Well, and we took the Etch-a-Sketch laptop, and we went. It was with John Velasaris.
That's right, with JV,
and Matt and others. And so we're taking the laptop and going, start again. Poke, poke, poke. We want to see it again.
Was there, was there any, somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings?
Right.
That was really interesting.
That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about it, Mark. How does it work? What is it doing?
It's practical. I think about it, as Jake was saying earlier, you think about the rise and the sort of things that we've been seeing over the last year from the threat intelligence report, and you take that and you turn it into what we actually do about it. And it's clear that that confluence of the increasing threat, the increasing complexity, just from the number of tool sets we have, and I call it the complexity trap. Threats going up, ever increasing threat exposure attack surfaces that we have to deal with, so attack surfaces. And then the fact that we think each time to deal with each of those, we need another tool. So you end up in that situation where we then are putting ourselves into that place where we just don't have a chance of keeping up with that.
We don't.
And actually we did a bit of work recently with our Institute of Business Value where we looked at 1,000 clients, we talked to 1,000 clients rather, and they said to us, look, 75% of the people we're talking to saying that the people who are in the SOC operations teams, are not having their best day every day, right? Because they just can't.
Right.
And it's just this continual treadmill of being completely overwhelmed. Now that's nothing new, but this complexity trap, which we sort of fall into of, in order to deal with that, we need to put more in. And that's really what I put the minds across the whole of the IBM security team to think about. How do we deal once and for all with that problem? Because we now are pulling from AI cases that we can see from lots of different disciplines, whether it's in areas of IT that have got nothing to do with security, where we can see enormous step changes in the ability to become more productive. So that's really the thinking behind Atom. And let's zoom in. Let's look at those areas where actually there are real practical things that we've been trying to solve for many, many years.
So enter the theme that we've seen over and over and over again here at RSA, right? Agentic AI.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about it before we came, it's like, okay, they're going to take over some of the labor. They're going to do some of the work for us. And so that's what Atom or ATOM is built on, yes?
It is exactly that. It's to say, let's look at those things that are the real burden, the backbone of the SOC that are very time consuming. Looking at alerts, assessing alerts, looking at, when there's an incident, the number of different pieces that come into the SOC that make up those incidents.
Well, it's overwhelming. I mean, years ago I did a study which we called FOMI, fear of missing incidents, right? Not just fear of missing out, but the poor SOC analyst is overwhelmed, overburdened, too much noise. And I have seen many, many SOC analyst reports, and I've seen a lot of triage that they've done.
Yeah.
And when we saw the demo of Atom, it was like taking the level 1 and the level 2 analysts and giving them a really well fleshed out investigation.
Exactly that. And the typical incident will have a number of IP addresses that need investigating, a number of hashes, lots of other things, lots of other indicators of compromise that are in there. That, just to trawl through that, would normally take a level 1 analyst in a SOC, weeks. Even if you're really focused on it, if it's a really critical incident, it might take only at least hours.
Yeah.
And what we're using our agents, so we use agents to do different things. So the agentic framework that is Atom is like taking those different agents that are doing the IP lookups, that are doing other things, and they're putting them together to get them to start working together.
Right.
And that's the secret here.
That's
you've got the agents working together.
Well, and that's, I don't even know how that works, Mark. I mean, to be honest with you, if you have a SOC analyst and a SOC analyst, and they can shake hands across the aisle and they can talk, right? It does take the hours of research and investigation. It takes them a long time to write the reports. But these agents are like our labor assistants, and they're reaching across the aisle or across the SOC, virtually.
To each other.
To each other.
All the time.
To find out the information that they need to correlate. Right?
And then ending up with that incident report. So let's cut to the chase. Atom can pull a report together, pull an incident report together in as little as 80 seconds. Something that would normally take an analyst.
No. Wait a minute. Blow my mind again. 80 seconds.
80 seconds.
All right, is this a really simple, not complex incident?
No, exactly. It can be pretty complicated. Something that we estimate that an analyst, we've done the time and motion study, that would take them probably weeks to get to. 80 seconds.
What struck? I mean, that that is amazing, of course.
And then on from that, so you think about that productivity saving in the SOC between the layer 1 and level 2. So some of the work just simply doesn't need to be done by people any longer. And where you then have the layer 1 or the level 1, level 2 analysts now operating at level 3, so now being presented with information that they can really drive that insight, take the threat intelligence and turn that into what do we now actually have to do. That, if you think about it, turns from someone who might have done maybe a few hundred of those at best a year to now being able to be equipped to do that thousands of times a year.
And so you're taking junior analysts, they're the level 1, level 2, and you're helping them become a gray beard a little bit quicker, right?
Absolutely right.
Because they have their Atom robot sitting next to them. So it helps you then with suggestions and remediation
All
thoughts.
of the above. Tells you the plan, what you should do, and of course that again can be tuned. And the way we look at it, we work with our clients, we deliver Atom to say, you can tune this, you can write your own agents, or we can write them for you for your specific use cases to enhance it and give you even more superpowers for that particular organization.
I love the superpowers. I love the
It really
superpowers.
is. And back to the greybeard thing. So where you are is that you now have people who previously would have not been turning up and showing up and having their best day, now are like completely unleashed to be able to say, actually, all I ever wanted to do was that really interesting stuff.
Right.
Now I can.
Someone posted on LinkedIn, and I've used it a bunch of times, where they said, look, I want my AI to do the dishes. I don't want it to create art for me.
Yeah.
And so now those level 1, level 2s, they can go create the art. They can do the interesting, higher risk investigations.
Correct.
So now going back to the threat intelligence index, you're taking all of this insight from all of the different sources that you talked about. Is that going to include everything that is being generated through Atom? I imagine it is, because it's part of investigation and SOC. And then what is the so what of that? And why, and I know it's obvious, but I want to spell it out. Having a SOC robot, if you will, is something that does what?
So
go ahead.
The whole point where we're trying to turn analysts into responders, right? And empower them with the so what is, what do I do about this now? And help me get to that point to tell me, so help me start down that road of where to go, what to do. So you give them the recommendations, right? Here's the best practices of what you should do in this incident, but we can also work with you to create the run books and then feed that and tune that model more to say this is not just what the best practice is, but what your company wants you to do in these specific incidents, right? So you're baking that into that automation.
What your company specifically wants you to do.
It.
So it is tunable, trainable.
Well, and what we're seeing with some clients that we're already working with at the moment is that all of those, and then of course we have that break clean point where we have the report there and the recommendations come out as Jake is describing. But there is no reason why we can't take that next leap, which is we're working with some clients that are already, okay, for this category of stuff, just go and make it happen. So let's get one of those agents now working with ServiceNow, for example, and just run the remediation straight.
Yeah.
Okay, that is going to be a leap, I think. That next step, the auto remediation.
Technically feasible today, and we have that.
Technically feasible today.
Now it's just a question of are we ready in terms of, we're getting the theme here. It's cultural change within our security operations environment. That next cultural leap is to say, are we okay for the machines to go and do that? Well, I think in many cases we are at that point where it's technically feasible and we are going to get okay with doing that, and a lot sooner than we think.
I wanted to ask about integrations because at the end of the day, I mean, we talk with many companies here, and many of them will say, they've looked at Atom and they've said, oh yeah, we do that. All of it?
We don't know if they do.
Or we've done that for 15 or 20 years. Now, whether they have or not is by the by. I think the key is how a company like IBM can offer the connectivity and integrations to all the other platforms. And we talked about the open source elements of it and how important that is, because if it's not something that can interact with legacy systems or other data sources or whatever, then it becomes just a bit of an island in itself.
So at its heart, Atom has been really designed with that open idea and open integration in there. So firstly, the agents work amongst themselves. There are 8 of them at the moment. We are literally got 3 more coming out in the next 4 weeks that will do other tasks. And as I said, clients can also introduce their own agents into that mix as well. And then operating with other agents from other providers, we have that capability as well.
Oh, so it's vendor agnostic,
Totally.
It's open entirely.
And the clients can deploy that either through our threat detection response service, or they can do that themselves, where we actually hand them tools themselves, or on-premise. So there's different models. But what's really important here, and this is something that I've been absolutely insistent on, and we will continue to be, is that we want Atom to show up in the interface that they use day in, day out. So if they're an XSIAM user from Palo, or if they're a Sentinel user in Microsoft, it shows up in there natively and not as another console that they have to go to. So Atom isn't a separate thing, it's part of it.
It's a part of their day-to-day.
But it's part of it.
Yeah.
We could probably talk for, well, no, we can talk for hours.
We can talk ourselves out of a paper bag, Rory, you and I.
But we probably have to wrap it up there.
We do.
So listen, thanks guys for coming on. We appreciate this
Such
for
a pleasure.
our special video and audio edition.
Yeah.
It's the first one we do.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at the footage afterwards. And if it is okay, we'll maybe consider doing it again. Otherwise,
with our one brain cell that's
well,
shared.
I know. My wife will probably have a few comments about how it looks or how I look. Did I get enough sleep? So again, thanks very much for that. And
really
we look
pleasure.
forward to talking with you guys again soon. And
Well,
all the best with the products.
Thank you. And hasn't it been an amazing week? Transformational week, I think.
Transformational, fun, great to see all the people we know and love, and really interesting and inspiring for the industry.
Yeah,
great.
It's good stuff.
And
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for the folks out there, for our listeners, and in fact are now our watchers, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see and hear, we can do more video work in terms of the podcast. Christina, if you think that would be a good idea, we can consider doing that.
Rory loves to push, pull, or drag me towards new things, so sure, Rory, we'll do whatever you think.
Hooray! And on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks all.
much. Take care.